Damn, Slim Dog.
It's FYF Sports, man. It's Lamont. We back. We back with another, a game review video. Today we're gonna be breaking down this NBA Finals matchup. Now, this is just a preliminary game review. Today's actually gonna be a special day because we actually brought in a special guest today to help us break down these games. Before we get into that guest, before we bring the guest into the show, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell to the video if you haven't done so already. As a reminder, you guys, we're going to be going live 2 hours before every game. Make sure you tune in with us tomorrow, 2 hours before the game. We're going to be going live. This is the first time we're going live. If you want to participate in those live debates, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. Our live debates, again, are going to be a little different. If you come with the strongest arguments, if you come with the, just the best debate period, man, we're going to let the chat decide. We give out cash prizes for all those guys who come in, whether we agree with you or not. If you come with the strongest debates, again, we're going to reward you with that cash prize. But, with no further ado, just want to let you guys know we do have a special guest onto the show. This is somebody that we've already had onto the show as a guest when we did an interview. But we're just going to go ahead and get right into this game breakdown and let's introduce the guest into you guys. All right, so we're here with Coach Matt Gordon. You guys might have remembered him from an interview that we did about a month and a half, 2 months ago. So he's here to help us do this game breakdown, the finals breakdown, Miami Heat and the Los Angeles Lakers. Man, this is a series that could go either way. This Miami Heat team, they've been really resilient. Kind of surprised everybody with their dominance of the Eastern Conference. But what we're going to do is we're going to break down both teams with Coach Gordon. We're going to break down some of these matchups. Who are the key players? How can each team win the series? We're going to break all of that down with Coach Matt Gordon. So, with further ado, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to him. Coach, how you been doing?
Doing great. Last time we talked seems like a long time ago. Lots been happening. I think we talked right before the bubble started, so got to see a little of the bubble and how that works, and it's been fun to get basketball back at some level, so I look forward to a tremendous finals, hopefully.
I know. I've been surprised when this all started up, this bubble basketball. The one thing I was really surprised about, especially watching it from home, is how they've been able to kind of recreate the look on TV, at least from that perspective, where it looks like you're watching a real NBA game. So that's kind of really helped. I didn't know how this would look, and so being that they've been able to kind of recreate the sounds and the feel, at least for viewers at home, it still feels like we're watching real NBA basketball. On top of the fact that the guys actually came into the NBA bubble, for the most part, most teams came ready to play and they're playing hard. But we're gonna get straight to this finals preview. First thing we got to talk about. And I really want to get your perspective on this team. First thing we're going to be talking about is the Miami Heat, man. I'm not even going to say much. I just want you to just kind of give me your breakdown of this team. Like, what have you seen from them so far? What are you impressed with? And what do you think they need to do going into this series to have success against the Los Angeles Lakers?
Well, the first thing about the Heat, is from the top all the way down, from the owner, Mickey Harrison, to Pat Riley, to the coach, Coach Spo. Like, they're all connected. So, like, that team, the Heat organization, hasn't had a lot of maybe on-court success because maybe talent or injuries. But, they always play hard. They always play together. It seems like they're always playing for each other. And this year they did a great job adding some key guys like Jay Crowder. They got Jimmy Butler, who's been like probably the missing alpha male on that team, and then getting a couple great draft picks the last 2 years. I mean, who would have thought Bam Adebayo would be an all-star, perennial, all-NBA guy. And then you get Hero this past year, unbelievable pick. Guy's super confident, tough, fits their culture perfectly, not afraid of anything. Rookie, 20 years old, goes out and scores 30 in Eastern Conference Finals. Unbelievable. And then their role guys, Dragic is playing like the old one from the Suns. So it's been a great blend, and I think being in the bubble, they've basically taken the most advantage of it out of any of the playoff teams, in my opinion, because, they're tough. They're going to create their own energy. They're going to create their own edge. That's just how they work. They take after their leader in Jimmy Butler, and those guys are just, nothing phases them. So, maybe they would have won a couple games in Milwaukee or this past series against the Boston Celtics in Boston, but that's a lot harder to do. And maybe a rookie doesn't perform or Bam doesn't perform as well there, but when it's all neutral, no home court advantage, the best team usually succeeds. And it looks like, we've gotten the best two teams, not the best. Obviously, the Lakers have the two best players, but they played great as a team, and the role players for Miami, I don't want to call them role players, but those guys have really stepped up. Duncan Robinson on a few games, which helps. In the NBA, you don't need to win all of them. You just need to win 4 each series. So you can have a bad game or 2, but you can have really good ones. And those guys just seem really connected, play hard, play for each other. And that's just kind of the culture that the Heat bring. They treat everybody the same for the most part, 1 through 15. And there's some great, leadership. I think Udonis Haslem doesn't even play a minute, but he's like a coach on their bench, and he ties those guys together too. I know he's huge in the locker room for them, and he goes untalked about. And they go to 10, 12 guys they can on their bench. They hadn't played Solomon Hill probably all playoffs, and they dust him off in the Eastern Conference Finals the last 2 games, and he gives them great minutes. And they'll probably need him against the Lakers to guard LeBron, use some of his fouls, use some of his physicality against LeBron and AD. And, they're going to have a great opportunity in the playoffs. I mean, the finals against the Lakers, because they got guys that can guard LeBron to an extent. They're not going to stop him, but they can make life really difficult for him and AD because they got size and strength to match up with those two. And I think it'll be interesting to see what they do. I know they'll probably zone a lot, pack it in, make the Lakers shoot a lot of threes. And then the key for me to them is 2 things. One is rebound the ball on defense. If they're going to play zone, obviously people that follow basketball, if you play zone, you're vulnerable to offensive rebounds. And the Lakers are the best at offensive rebounding in the playoffs. And I think throughout the year, they were the top 2 or 3 in second chance points. So that's huge. They got to gang rebound the basketball. And second, they got to take great shots and not turn the ball over on offense. One thing I did notice a few times against the Celtics, not a lot, they did a good job not turning it over, but they did get lax with the ball sometimes. And if they create fast break opportunities, transition opportunities for the Lakers, they're going to struggle. So they got to take good shots, take care of the ball to make the Lakers play half court, and then limit them to one shot, because the Lakers aren't the best shooting team. We know they've had struggles from the 3. And if they don't shoot it great, it's going to be a good series. And the Heat have a great opportunity to win.
Yeah, a lot of some of the stuff that you were saying was almost the same as I was thinking. I'm thinking as well, and I want your thoughts on this. Like, we know the Lakers were number 2 in the league with regards to transition offense, but we also know that Miami wants to probably zone up to some degree. We saw them come out of man sometimes against the Celtics, and we know that transition can being able to get out in transition, if you're not able to make shots or if you're turning the ball over, can be a weakness to the zone. It can make that zone kind of ineffective, especially if you're not able to set it up. How do you think the Miami Heat, what can they do in this series to limit the Lakers in transition? Because essentially that's what they've been able to do against Portland, Houston, and Denver. When they get out in the transition, they're almost unbeatable, and none of those teams found a way to slow them down in any type of transition, whether it's off the rebound, whether it's off turnovers. What can they do to slow them down?
Your turnovers, you can turn the ball over. You just got to make sure they're not 1-on-0 turnovers, I call them, or 2-on-1 turnovers. You throw the ball out of bounds, you travel, charge. You can always set your defense on those. which are usually aggressive. It's the ones where you don't take care of the ball, throw bad passes that lead to leak out transition. So they just got to be really smart with the ball. They have to get good shots. They don't have to make them all, but if they have the floor balanced when they shoot, they can make sure that they're getting back on defense to set up their man or zone. And I think that's going to be a key to this series is their offense, not so much scoring, not taking bad quick shots, not giving them bad turnovers where the Lakers can get out on the break. Because I think the Lakers, it has been shown that they're good in the half court. Don't get me wrong. When you have LeBron and AD, you're going to be really good in the half court. But I think that gives them the best opportunity to win is if it becomes a half court grinded out kind of game.
Definitely agree there. I think that I almost think that's their only chance. They got to slow this game down. They cannot let LA get out in the transition, not like they were against Portland, against Houston, and against Denver. But I think this team, out of all the teams left, I think this team can do it. Of all the teams that I've seen defend, they've been resilient on defense first, and then they play together on offense second. My surprise player so far, and I want your thoughts on this guy. The first one is Tyler Hero. When he came out of Kentucky, I thought he came out too soon. That was my first thoughts when he came out. I didn't think he was ready based on what I saw at Kentucky. And so I was surprised to see him go so high to Miami in the draft. And now I see why they drafted this guy. Now, I didn't see this before. What are your thoughts on Tyler Hero? And do you think he'll be able to perform at the same level even with the pressure of the NBA Finals?
Yeah, I think two things. I think Tyler Hero will be fine. The dude's got supreme confidence, no fear in his game. And I also think the bubble helps. Without fans, it's easier. Like, you have anxiety, but you don't have as much. You don't have as much hype either way. You're not getting, because it's a neutral atmosphere, and they're so used to it. They've played so many games now in the same 3 arenas or 2 arenas with the same environment. Now it's like just another game. So the X factor of the finals, I think it's cut in half at least. And so for rookies, I think that's a huge advantage for him and for the Heat, because him and a guy like Duncan Robinson, those guys have 2 or 3 really good games. They don't need 4 or 5. They need 2 or 3 really good games. That gives the Heat an unbelievable chance to win some games and even win the series. If they get hot, the dude just ridiculous. And it'd be interesting to see who the Lakers can put on him to match up, because the Heat will be looking to exploit some of those mismatches that they have. And one thing about the Heat, they got a bunch of dudes that can score. Lakers were able to key on 2 guys last series. This series is going to be a little harder for them just to key on 1 or 2 guys. They're going to have to, take away Hero. But I think he's going to be good. And about Kentucky players, which is interesting, they got so many good players. John Calipari does a great job of making guys buy into the team. And that's another subject, but he's a hell of a coach. And it's really hard to coach really good players, especially if they know they're leaving after a year, to buy into team. And I think that's why stats at Kentucky can get a little misconstrued. Those guys are really good, and they understand team basketball. So when they get to the NBA, they're more ready than others. And with more space, guys like Hero, Jamal Murray, Bam, those guys are really good. Devin Booker came off the bench at Kentucky. Now he's an all-star. So those guys don't get to show out as much as some that play on worse teams or teams that coach just lets them play and jack 20, 30 shots a game. So they understand the value of playing with really good players because they've already done it for a year. So I think they're more prepared and ready. And then you have to give the Heat coaching staff, development staff, a great level of kudos to helping those guys learn how to play the right way and take good shots and let the game come to them. One thing about Hero, he doesn't force a ton, which I think is huge for a young guy. He understands what's a good shot, what's a bad shot, when he's in rhythm, when he's not. And I think that's huge.
Yeah, the NBA is all about confidence, and all 3 of their young guys, Tyler Hero, Kendrick Nunn, and Duncan Robinson, they're all playing with a high level of confidence. They all look like vets. That's one thing that's consistent with all 3 of their rookies. They don't look like rookies. They don't play like they're sped up. And again, the Heat and Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra, they have a system over there that looks to be working, especially when it comes to those young guys. And that even correlates to Derrick Jones Jr., who comes off the bench as well.
I think you're right. Those guys, they give good confidence. They get guys to buy into their roles. And those guys are really good at their roles, and they understand their roles. And this is a weird season, too. Like, we had a season, had 3 months off, or 4 months off, whatever it was, and then played again, which is really a separate season. It's really not the same season. So these guys that are rookies or second-year guys now are second-year or third-year guys. They had the opportunity to watch film. They had the opportunity to get another training camp in basically before they went to the bubble. So you have to understand, in the NBA season, once training camp's over, they barely practice. And so now this year they got an extra like 3 weeks of practice. So now you're taking guys, they might be rookies in name, but they're not really rookies anymore. They're second, third, fourth. They're 1 year up, even though it's the same season. So that's another crazy thing about this year's bubble. It's basically like season 1B. It isn't like 1A anymore.
Man, that's 100% true, and it's showing. It's definitely showing. So that's with the Miami Heat. That's our take on the Miami Heat. I think we both agree that it's gonna be about slowing down the Lakers, taking away those transition opportunities. And again, you might not be able to stop every transition opportunity, but you can limit them. But you gotta have that laser focus. You can't let up. The Lakers have been really good at exploiting the mistakes this particular playoff. And when you make mistakes against them, they definitely burn you, especially in the fourth quarter. But that's where we actually transition. You know, we definitely have to transition over to the Los Angeles Lakers themselves. Man, they got LeBron James, MVP candidate. Anthony Davis, MVP candidate himself. We have, surprisingly, guys like Caruso stepping up big. I think Rondo, for me, was a big surprise. I did not expect this out of Rondo. I didn't know how he would come back from that hand injury with his conditioning or the hand injury itself. He came back. He surprised me. Dwight Howard's had some good games. Just in general, do you think this Laker team is beatable? Is it possible? And, what do they need to watch for against this Miami Heat team?
I mean, the Lakers are good. I mean, let's be honest. They got the two best players in the whole left in the playoffs, or probably the two best players in the NBA, in a lot of people's opinion. And their role players are fitting their roles. I mean, guys like Dwight Howard playing a great role. He's like the big pest. Like, he just trying to got Jokic off his game sometimes just by being a pest, being a pain in the butt, putting his body on him, making him frustrated, just being physical, rebounding, dunking on the roll. So that's huge. Like, he's not trying to do too much. He's just playing his role, and Rondo's playing his role as a veteran playmaker, not playing out of his mind in terms of he understands what he's limited to, and his on-ball defense against Jamal Murray was incredible. If you really watch that closely, he did a really good job on Jamal when he was in the game, just being a pest. Guys like KCP, who I'm not the biggest fan of, but like, he's come up big. Like, he's made big shots when they needed threes. He's made them. He's tried hard to be locked in on defense. Guys like Danny Green, consummate professional. Like, he understands. He sits in the corner and needs to make the corner three. Do we make all of them? No, but he usually makes the important ones. And is solid on defense. And then you got LeBron, who's incredibly locked in right now. And AD, when he's aggressive and doesn't settle, he's really, really, really unstoppable almost on offense. Like, it'll be interesting to see, though, if the Heat can make them settle for threes. When you saw Boston play, especially this last game, first half, maybe the first three quarters, they drove the ball, short rolled into the high post, played drive and kick, drive, and got really good shots against the zone. In Miami, the Lakers do that with LeBron and AD and short roll them into the high post and play out of there and drive it. They're gonna be really tough for the Heat to get stops. But if they settle for quick threes because they're open and they don't make them, they could lose games. And And they got to understand if they do shoot quick shots, they need to go get the ball because that's their strength is offensive rebounds. Guys like Dwight Howard, Markieff Morris, Anthony Davis going in and offensive rebounding the basketball, JaVale McGee if he's in. And then, they got to match up against Bam and those guys on the other end, which I think they do. The Lakers were in the top 3, I think, in defense. I know they were all year. So, they're highly good, skilled, highly locked in on defense. If a team's playing well together, they're defending. And they're really defending at a high level because of the Rondo applying ball pressure. And they got to do all those things to make it maybe a more lopsided series than it should be.
Yeah, I agree. The one thing that I noticed when I looked at the losses to when they lost to Portland, when they lost to Houston and Denver, the one thing that I noticed was they shot over 33s in all those games. And they fell in love with the three-point shot, especially when guys like KCP aren't making them. Danny Green, they were all struggling. And you can see that immediately change. They never lost back-to-back games because the one thing that I saw that they made a concerted effort to change was not chucking up threes, not always just taking the quick three. They look to drive more. They look to get to the free throw line more. A lot of people complained about all of the foul calls that the Lakers got, but that's a testament to making a concerted effort to constantly attacking the basket. We see LeBron now. He looks completely different. He's not settling for those mid-range shots or the long threes. He's making a concerted effort to constantly attack the basket over and over again, and that's been wearing down on these teams as the series wanes on. These teams have just been getting worn down with LeBron just constantly going at them. And I think when you have the best player in the league, both of the best players in the league, or two of the best players in the league going at you, and they're going right at your chest at the rim, it's just not going to bode well for you. I don't really see I honestly don't really see a scenario where the Lakers lose this series unless there's a major injury. But we know that, again, the Miami Heat, Eric Spoelstra, he's been able to come out with some defensive strategies that have confused even the best teams like the Bucks. I'm real curious to see how the Lakers react to this on. I just think the IQ of the Laker players is gonna it's gonna override that zone. What are your thoughts on how they play against this zone in the half court?
Like I said, they can't settle for threes. Whether the Heat play man or zone, they're going to pack it in and make the Lakers perimeter guys make shots, contested shots. That's the only way they got a chance because they play straight man. They're going to isolate Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero. They're not Dragic on LeBron, on AD. They're going to get a switch and just put those guys on one-on-one. And if they do, the Heat will shrink the floor better than anybody. And they're going to make you make contested threes from the corner or the slot position, and then they got to rebound. That's the best way they have a chance. And the Lakers can't fall into those shots. They got to drive it. LeBron can't settle. And then I think the officiating, nobody wants to talk about all the time. I think that's huge. If they let him play physical, the Heat chances go way up. If they call fouls like they did the last game after LeBron writes and the Lakers write a letter to the officials and he gets fouled. Yeah, LeBron gets fouled almost every play because he's big. But sometimes you got to understand as an official when the feel is. And if they let some of those things go in the finals, then the Heat's got a good opportunity because they're going to be physical. That's their MO. They're going to play physical. They're going to beat you up physically or try to on the floor, and that's what's going to happen, I think. And the Lakers can't just fall into the three trap like the Celtics did in the fourth quarter of Game 6 and go cold and end up losing the game in the series.
That's 100% right there. We saw a younger team in the Celtics. They took the bait. They kind of shot themselves out of it. I thought that was a game where they kind of had control of it, and they lost grips of that game because they fell into that shooting all those threes. Again, with the Lakers, especially in the fourth quarters, they've come up big in these fourth quarters. They haven't really made too many huge mistakes. I see the Lakers taking this series 5, maybe 6 games. For the Lakers, I think I think the key players for the Lakers are definitely going to be Rondo, and then guys like Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee. We know what LeBron and AD are going to bring, even in losses. We know they're going to bring big games. I think it's going to be about a few of those other guys. Rondo's been very consistent. I don't see him changing up. Whether he's scoring buckets or making plays, one of the two is going to be consistent. Who do you think is going to be a key player for this Laker team coming off that bench?
Yeah, I agree with what exactly you said. Rondo's going to bring some playmaking, and he's got to be able to drive seams and get guys involved. I think guys like Markieff Morris and KCP, Kuzma, those guys who can be hot and cold from the three are really important. They don't settle every time for when they're open and understand. And I think the Lakers have a great understanding at the end of games who needs the ball. And some of those other teams don't understand that LeBron and AD need the ball at the end of games. And the same shots they were taking earlier in the games, they're not taking anymore. They're giving those shots to other guys. Some of those other teams, role players were shooting it, and their best players weren't getting shots or passing up shots. And I think that's maturity on mature teams. They know who should be shooting the ball when the game's on the line, like the Lakers do. And I think that's a huge advantage for the Lakers because the ball's always in AD or LeBron's hands in the last 5-6 minutes of the game, and they understand when their opportunities are and who needs to shoot the ball. Unless it's the end of shot clock and they need to shoot it, they're getting the ball to LeBron and AD to make plays.
Yeah, I think I think that was the biggest problem with the Clippers. Going into the fourth, I don't think they had an understanding of roles and who was going to shoot the ball when it came down to it. I think they were kind of all over the place, and it just kind of fell apart for them in Game 4. The Lakers do a good job of understanding that LeBron and AD are, for the most part, going to run the show in the fourth, and other guys just have to make shots when they get their opportunities. So they, in their own right, have done a good job of accepting roles, the same way the Miami Heat have done a great job of everybody buying into their role. And one of the things, like with the Miami Heat, it just surprised me how guys like Derrick Jones Jr. can come off the bench and be so elite defensively, even in playing maybe 8 to 10 minutes a game. He doesn't even know if he'll play. But when you have guys like that who can come off the bench and be elite at what they do in spot minutes and not really care about touching the ball or getting a lot of minutes, I think that's what makes them elite. But this Laker team, man, they're so deep. I really want to see Kuzma have a breakout series. He hasn't been playing well. He's played well in spots, but for the most part, he's been a disappointment this playoffs. What do you think is going on with Kuzma? What do you think he could do to be more of an impact player for the Lakers?
Well, I think Kuzma, everybody, he had such a good rookie year because he got a lot of shots. He was on a bad team. Now that he's playing with two superstars, yeah, could he be the third guy? Yeah, he should be. But, he has to learn how to now be efficient with his shots, be efficient with the ball. He won't score as much as he did earlier in his first year because he ended up being the guy. That was an awful team, if we remember correctly, before LeBron. And when LeBron gets there, your game changes, and only certain guys understand how to play with him. Because you're not going to get the ball all the time. You're not going to control the ball. You're going to have to make shots when you're open, and you're going to have to drive the ball off the catch and make plays because LeBron's going to get you the ball in great spots. And if you're a ball-dominant guard or guy, it's hard. And he went from being more of a ball-dominant guy. I don't even know if he was that good. But the kid's good. He's really good. But out of Utah, he was more of a really good role. He wasn't a role player, but he wasn't coming in as a superstar or a kid that they thought he exceeded expectations his first year. And I think right now he's playing at the level maybe he is and getting used to him. But if you put him on another team like the Cavs or the Kings, the dude's a 19, 20-point scorer because he's going to get more shots. Now, will he be as efficient? No, but he's going to get shots. So he just has to play in his role. They're going to look to exploit him on defense, so he's going to really have to guard his man because they're going to look to get him to switch on the guys because he's not an elite defender, and the Heat can attack him. So I think if he can guard and rebound, he brings a lot of value to the Lakers, not just making shots all the time.
Yeah. Kuzma for me again. I kind of been thinking the same thing. For me, I think he's one of the few Lakers that looks a bit sped up. I think he's trying to force things a little too much. That's not necessarily a bad thing because you want your guys to give effort. That's the one thing I see him doing. He's not the greatest defensively, but he's giving effort, and that makes up for a lot. I think that was, talking about the last series, a guy like Michael Porter Jr., that was his problem. The effort wasn't there. If he had just a little bit of effort, that can make up for some of the bad decisions he made defensively. So that's one thing I can appreciate about both teams. Everybody's giving effort. It's going to make for a great series. I don't think it's going to be a sweep like some people are predicting. A lot of people have the Lakers big in a 4-0 or gentleman sweep at 4-1. I think the Heat are solid enough to pull out possibly 2 wins. And again, if, like you said, if the Lakers fall into shooting a lot of threes, they can potentially take this to a Game 7 if the Lakers make mistakes, because just like the Lakers, Miami has been really strong in the fourth quarter throughout this whole playoff series. So what do you think the overall outcome of this series is going to be if you just had to make your overall finals prediction?
I think, most of the games will be really close, and if they're not close to the final score, they'll be close through 3.5 quarters. It's a make or miss league. Everybody talks about that. Like, you make shots, you look great. If you miss, you're not. I think one game, maybe 2, one team will shoot the ball really well, the other team won't. Might get a blowout. But I think it'll go 5 or 6 games. The Lakers, obviously, on paper, are the better team. But it'll be fun to watch because, as a coach, these are the 2 best teams. Like you said, the role players play their role. Guys like Kuzma, he's a good player, don't get me wrong. He's actually playing his role pretty well, doing what he needs to do. And the Lakers have really bought into that. The Heat are really good at their roles. They understand where they go. And the championship teams in the last few years have all had really good teams. There's not one good player. There's guys that make guys better, but they all play their roles incredibly well. And these 2 teams in the bubble have played incredibly well as a team, and it's fun. It'll be a great series. I think it'll be close. It'll be defensive. The Lakers obviously are the better team on paper. Like I said, they should win, but it's a make or miss league. Who can make shots and who can get momentum and through the series. So it'll be fun.
Now, with regards to, we got to talk about this as well. With regards to legacy, do you think this championship, this finals, do you think it's going to have a major impact on LeBron's legacy? We know he's 3-6 in finals. 3-6 in finals. I know he definitely doesn't want that 3-7 mark over his head. Do you think a lot of these guys like AD, he needs that first championship? A lot of people talk about that. LeBron, his finals record over his career, he has that losing finals record. Do you think the Lakers will have that in the back of their minds as they enter this finals appearance against the Heat?
No, they just want to win a championship. I mean, that's great for shows and the internet and NBA Twitter and barbershop talk, all that stuff. Yeah, it's fun as heck to debate all that stuff. Those guys just want to win a championship. And I think those guys like AD and LeBron, I think it really means a lot to them, LeBron, to take over this organization. And then in the wake of the Kobe stuff, to win a championship for them, I think it look, if you want to talk legacy, yeah, he won 3 championships with 3 different teams. I could be wrong, but he's probably the only superstar to do that. And that by itself is crazy. It's crazy that he's been to the finals like 10, 11 years or 12 years. That's nuts. Dude's a winner. AD's finally playing with another star first year and get to the finals and then win it. And of course, that's going to help him, and because guys are based on rings. That's how you separate yourself as a superstar. Do you have NBA championships or not? That makes you an elite player, I think, if you have a championship, if you're an elite superstar. So, yeah, of course, it's going to make you better in the public eye and help your debate on Twitter or whatever platform you use to debate NBA, which is awesome. It's fun. But I don't really think the guys care as much as fans do.
I agree because, I know with you being a coach who's actually won championships, it's just hard, when you're in the middle of that game, or when you're in the middle of some type of series, or you're making a championship run, it's just funny that fans think that players are really thinking about legacy, and I just think that's like the last thing on their mind when they're in the middle of a championship run. I think those are things that you maybe will think about when it's all said and done, when your career's over, or even when the series is over. But in the midst of it, I like, just as a player and then coaching, I know that, and I know you know the same thing, that these things, a lot of these things that we talk about in the media, a lot of the things that fans talk about, you know, in offices and barbershops, that's not what is. You can't really think about those things if you're a player one, and they have so much going on with regards to preparing for the game and just day-to-day life. I think these are just frivolous things, almost just things that we think about as fans, or they mean more to us as fans.
No doubt. Basketball and sports is entertainment. At the end of the day, it's entertainment. These people are getting paid lots of money to entertain us. And part of the entertainment value is debating how good they are, what their legacy is, and have discussion that's not everyday crazy world that we live in today. So, you know, it gives us that opportunity, it gives the media opportunity to talk about it. And one of the things, if you really want to notice, the NBA guys didn't want to play, in my opinion, because they didn't want their legacy talk, their debates to take over from the real world problems of today. And I think that can't go unnoticed. That's why they're trying to use this platform to help real social issues, not whose legacy is going to get cemented by an NBA championship, because those talks sometimes take over what's really important. Because at the end of the day, sports is entertainment, and it's a sport. It's a kid's game that people are getting paid a lot of money to play, and people take way too seriously. So, you know, I think they can use sports to create social reform and help. And I think that's the bigger issue if we want to talk about legacy for players.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. I think it was really big of the players to even sacrifice their time to go into the bubble in this particular situation. I mean, I know a lot of the guys wanted to actually go and play, take their mind off a lot of the things that are going on in the world today. But again, there is a bigger message. There is a bigger picture out there with the NBA. I think the NBA's done a really good job of pushing that message, keeping everybody aware. I mean, with regards to voting reform, telling guys to vote, with the BLM movement, and just keeping people aware of that particular movement as well. I think in whole, they've done a good job of pushing that message. Allowing the players the freedom to talk about these things, whether it's before the game, after the game, or on their own platforms, just giving the players the freedom to express this however they feel necessary. And then also giving players the opportunity to not even participate and play if they choose to do so. So I think overall this bubble experience has been a really good thing. I don't know if the bubble entirely is something that they're going to be doing next year, but so far, I have to give the NBA A on how they've handled the bubble going into this finals. I think we're going to have a great finals matchup overall. And I look forward to watching these two teams play. But we're going to go ahead and wrap the show up. I definitely appreciate Coach Gordon coming to the show today, giving us his time, giving us his insight on the NBA finals. I really wanted to give you guys just a different take on the NBA Finals. Again, he's a coach. I mean, he's seen a lot of basketball, a lot more than me at higher levels. And so it's really good to get that type of insight on the particular game. Curious to see how this pans out. But guys, want to make sure that you guys also remember we will be going live 2 hours before the game tomorrow. We will be going live. Make sure you tune in for that live debate. If you want to speak with us about anything, if you have any questions, if you want to debate any topics, that's going to be your opportunities. It's the first time we're going live here on FYF Sports, so make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. Tune in, check us out 2 hours before the game, so we can chop it up before the game starts. But it's been another great show. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell, as we said earlier. And it's FYF Sports.